Good evening, everyone. Today is May 13th, 2025, meeting of the Audit and Finance Committee. All right, first question. Do we have any updates on the New York State budget and how it will affect our budget? Ms. Peterson?
So the New York State budget was approved. The local runs usually are given to us and we base our projections on what the state presumes. There will be adjustments throughout the year, so we're not seeing any large-scale changes. One thing that came through in the budget process that is beneficial was the funding of our Governor Hochul's initiative around free and reduced lunch, which was something definitely that we were concerned about regarding just our community eligibility. We're still not sure with that guidance if there will be more certification that will be needed from our local families, and that process is kind of ongoing. But if there's anything else, Mr. Rothman, that you would like to add?
So during the budget presentations, we mentioned that the state hadn't passed their budget yet. Right. So the Board of Ed approved their budget based on those projections. They're still, even with the state run, it's a projection for revenues. So it doesn't change what was passed by the Board of Ed, right? So, what was passed, and then decisions will be made as revenue and as we monitor revenue during the next school year.
One thing I also would like to say, within those runs, sometimes there's additions and subtractions based on what the state may say, right? So if they say, we're seeing, based on our funding, that we have a little of extra money to give you for this fund, they will award it. Or if they say, you know what, we need to take. So that's why it's important to just monitor the state aid runs and see the push and the pull.
Great. Thank you. You already answered my thing on the lunch program. I did see that. And our foundation aid and special aid projections, do you think they're pretty much on par where they should be? No changes based on the budget?
No, I mean, I know that we've really been saying that there are projections, right? So one of the things that we saw, especially in our excess cost aid, was that we were going to look at the actuals. Sometimes the projections are not actually what the district receives. So just after speaking with consultants and different advisors, they have seen that there's been that discrepancy within the excess cost aid. It's something that our budget consultant also spoke to the last time that they were there, and the rationale as to why we were kind of estimating a little bit higher. So we're pretty much seeing that this is from the projections what we actually receive, and we're comfortable with what we projected.
Thank you, and we'll keep the public informed as things change. What about federal aid? I know that's an issue of contention. Do we have any idea where we stand with our federal aid?
So our federal aid, some of our federal aid goes through our state aid, right? So we get the federal government gives money to our state government that then disperses based on their foundation aid formula to different school districts. But there are certain direct aid from the state, our 611, 619 grants that are direct with the federal government. So as well as our food service program. So that was one great thing that Governor Hochul did choose to fund free and reduced lunch, because that does help us dramatically, that we're not, dependent in some parts on the federal government for that, because there's still cost structures within our food service department that we are concerned about in terms of food supply and just different vendors. 611, 619, that's still something that we're very much concerned about. It's a slide that was in our previous budget presentations where we looked at the amount of positions and services that we have tied to 611, 619. There hasn't been discussion on the federal level whether or not there are going to be adjustments to 611, 619 yet. There's been, lobbying and advocates in Washington that special aid funding is not touched. So we are hopeful that that it's not. If there's anything that does come out where it is over the summer and the fall, we would have to make adjustments, and the board, the administration would bring that information back to the board to make financial decisions as to what our next steps would be as a district. I'm not sure in that slide that we have in a previous session how many, but we did discuss that during our budget development process.
I remember that. And I just want to say I'm really happy with the budget presentation this year. I looked at past years, and this year was very, very transparent. Every department came up, explained what they needed, why they needed it, and gave a very clear presentation, and it was moved right into the budget, so I really like that. All right, next item.
Something about the presentation.
Go ahead.
So the processes that we've used has been the same process that we've used for the last 2.5 years. The presentations, I think that, we try to make sure that it's transparent as possible. I know at the end of the last budget cycle last year, we definitely had a forum where we did that same divisional update of what is being funded within the auditorium for the community to come and speak. We felt as an executive cabinet that we wanted to make sure that people understood that each executive leader that is here is managing a budget and what that budget entails and what it funds. It's something that we've done in the past, and we went back to that process this year.
Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is the claims auditor report. I want to say I saw a lot of improvements with the descriptions on the warrants. I want to thank you for that. And I noted that we're handling the stale checks that was on, might have a napkin here.
Wow, I completely missed.
You missed everything. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
I'm like a Boy Scout,
Thank
prepared.
you, Mr. Stewart.
So I noticed we handled the stale checks and we're reissuing them. I appreciate that.
Yes. Yes. That's going to go into actually another thing that we're going to discuss.
Okay, good. I also noticed that on a couple things in Spec Ed, that nursing services payments exceeded the purchase order by $53. There were 10 of those. And then for Amazon Capital, there were 4 payments where it says that the payments exceeded the purchase order by $43.09. How is that handled when the purchase order, the payments exceeded the purchase order? Do they? You want me to find it?
No. I was going to ask Mr. Rothman if he wanted to answer that one.
Yeah, so the questions are asked of the requisitioner, right? So, especially with Amazon, and we've had conversations with Amazon, folks think that it's similar to the way that you order at home, right? And that things are going to be there. That's just not the way it works, right? And there is, because of the approval process, it sometimes takes time. And so we've actually worked with Amazon where the prices are locked in for a longer time, because what was happening is they were only locked in for a week, right? But because of the approvals that needed to happen, and then the order actually being executed, at times it would take longer for that order to go through. And so that's where some of those discrepancies, but certainly the conversation is back to the requisitioner if it is exactly what they wanted to order, and if the delivery was what was expected.
Okay. What about the nursing services?
So what ends up happening when the requisition or the PO is more that we do definitely have to go back to the initiator to ensure that we do have money in the budget. Sometimes it's a simple increase of the PO, because definitely with purchasing, sometimes that definitely goes up with Amazon. With the nursing services, it could have been a calculation based, I know that there was, that nursing service is a mandated service. So it may be something that also, I think I don't want to misspeak, but we can get back to you on it. I think that there was definitely another RFP that went out for those services, and it may be just an extension of that, but I'll research that and get back to the committee on the weekly.
Thank you. The other thing is I noticed that there's no treasury report for March, and we have a budget transfer in the agenda today. And anytime there's a transfer, we're supposed to get a treasury report with like the fund balances, and I noticed that we do not have that. Is there a way that anytime there is a budget transfer, as per policy, that we can get a treasurer's report to bring us up to date where the fund balances are, especially we're getting close to the end of the year.
Right. So there's a treasurer we can't issue a treasury report without a treasurer. So I know on tonight's regular board meeting, there's a recommendation for that position. The last treasurer's report they got in April?
April for February,
For
correct?
February, because we're usually about 30 days behind on those reports. So we can't give you, with the treasurer's report, but there, as we said before, there's aspects of the treasurer's report. We can give you transfers, we could give you balances, but that actual bank reconciliation part is the duty of the treasurer.
Right.
So, I can't, produce that report without that signature. I can reproduce aspects of that.
What about the, budget status report? Can we get that? Or
The budget status report and the revenue you can get, the revenue you definitely can get. The budget status report, I think you would have to have, because it's
Yeah, we'll get back to, I don't see a reason why not, but I may not be thinking of something right
Without
now.
a treasurer, we can't get the treasury report? Nobody
The
fills
deputy
it?
treasurer fills in and
Yeah.
does the treasurer's report.
Okay.
So, the last one that you got, I can't remember the timing of when the treasurer left and the deputy treasurer, right? So, but certainly, we'll bring it back and we'll get you an answer. I don't see right now why we shouldn't be able to give you at least a budget status report, but I don't want to misspeak and promise you something that I just can't
With
produce.
that all said, we're getting close to the end of the year. Do you have any end-of-year projections, where our fund balances are? Are we going to be within our 4%? Or are we going to be short? I just want to make sure that, we're doing our due diligence to make sure we're on track.
Usually after the beginning of June, we start the projection piece. I know right now we're in the process of getting those. I think the spending cutoff for general funds was like February, March. So we have end of the year purchase orders that we're placing in for goods and services. So like our end of the year events, different things. I know our federal cutoff spending is, I think, this Friday. So we're going to start to move and transition into that end of the year. There's also, as a part of our budget process, we also talked about some bigger ticket items that may need to be done with what we may have left. So those recommendations will probably be made to the board at our next board meeting. Some of them are on this board meeting. And then projections usually come in June for fund balance, funding fund balance, and making sure that we are putting any surplus in reserve.
In the reserve.
All of those recommendations go directly to the board, and the approval is needed to fund those.
Thank you for that. The last thing,
Can I just say one more thing? As a reminder, in terms of expenditures last year, we were, our surplus came from our revenues. Our expenditures were really close. I think we didn't utilize maybe 2% of our projected expense side of the budget. So, we're getting very, very good about projecting our expense side of the budget, the revenue. Some parts of our revenue are basically, we can project, but we can't assume. So we know that some of those revenues, for instance, our interest earnings, our excess cost aid, our Medicaid reimbursement is set by, some is set by the federal government, some is set by state ed, and what our expenditures have been. So, but we will have those projections towards the end of June.
thank you. So, the last year, the external audit report, one of the things that they want by the end of the year is like multiple bank accounts reconciliation did not match. I want to make sure that we are reconciling those. Our state aid was off. I want to make sure that we're good with that. We're just staying on top of things so we have a nice, clean report this year.
So a part of that reconciliation is done by the treasurer. So a part of us making sure that we maintain our reconciliation is just the retention of the treasurer and the deputy treasurer. Our reporting this year, definitely our previous treasurer was able to catch up on some of the reporting. We're basically within that window for our treasurer's report for next year, and we will get back to you. I don't think that we're seeing the need to to be late or anything like that. I think that it is going to be. And then the second point that what was the second point you made? The question you asked? Oh, state aid.
State aid, correct.
Okay, so state aid, just to kind of go back to that, is a projection. So the state at any time can give us more money. We never want to give back money.
100%.
But those projections, it's a moving number. So definitely some of the revenues that are generated from state aid can be different from what our projections are. So I know, for instance, excess cost aid was a revenue that was way higher than what was projected in our initial projections last year. So what our hope is just continue to monitor that in our revenue side. And Kevin, Mr. Rothman.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of time and energy put into making sure that things are cleaner, right? Both internally and externally, right? So both with the folks that we have here and with consultants. So we're confident that come the end of the close of this year, that it will be a cleaner process than last year.
I do have to say that the warrants are coming out a lot more cleaner. I can see the descriptions very clear. The only one I'm having trouble understanding is the lunch fund, because the descriptions aren't really very good. It just says food service or equipment repair. And I'm hoping down the line we can narrow that down so we know, which vendors makes it a little bit easier to look at and understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's a testament to the work of the accounts payable department,
They do a
right?
great
And
job.
so the communication, but the work that they're putting in, and I appreciate you pointing out that that's just purely a testament to their work.
And I think especially for the food services department, we still have some key vacancies in food services that we're struggling to fill. I was just in a conversation with the food service director today. There's still some key vacancies. We've been filling in, on that accounting side. There's also been a lot of concerns nationwide with vendors for food service. So some of the descriptions, some of the accounts, I mean, if there'll be one vendor that, like, overnight basically does not have this, and that's what they've really been struggling with nationwide in terms of just, these large-scale food items.
And I just want to point out with food service as well, right? Recently, there was a bit of a reorganization where someone was brought into the actual finance office as opposed to working directly in the food service, so that
Gonna
we
help
can
things out.
try to address some of those descriptions, just some of the things, and get them, sort of up to speed, and they know the expectations directly from us as opposed to being in a different space.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approved budget transfer. And I got to say, I'm very pleased with this budget transfer, because now we're going to actually address the data rooms, the security of the data rooms. It's long overdue. I've noticed it in past reports that it's been noted that they need to be done, so I'm glad we're addressing that. And I don't have anything else. So John, you have anything to add on that?
I think
No,
that this,
I'll echo your comments on the data room. I remember speaking about that
Yeah.
a few weeks back, that we
Especially-
needed some help.
My company just got hacked, so it's a big thing to me, the security of our data for the school district.
it's a huge thing, and I think that this is also the lockdown system within, so it's not that, it's just also some of the physical security, and I'm thankful to Mr. McGrath and Mr. Sager for really jumping on this and getting the quotes and working with the vendors and doing what needs to be done in order to secure. It's something that, as the Assistant Superintendent of Technology, it was like one of those things, right? It needs to be done, and you're trying to figure out how, funding-wise, when is the timing? You know that it's something that is very difficult to plan in because of the cost of it. So I'm actually happy that some of the security, and it also is going to help with just connectivity throughout the district, so I am thankful for that.
So based on that, I'm going to, suggest that we approve the budget transfer, but I still want my treasury reports, okay? The last thing on the agenda is a resolution to approve a request for proposals authorizing the acting superintendent of the schools to execute agreement for banking service. Can you address that? I read some of it, but it was lengthy.
Right, so some of it I can answer on the floor.
Sure.
So some of it,
That's fine.
if you want to go into
Whatever.
executive session, I can answer those questions for you. But this is a normal part, of school transactions, to go out for an RFP, to put out certain things that we're seeing. And I think there's been a deep dive and look at different ways in which all services that we purchase throughout the district are servicing the district well. So we felt that there were certain things that we needed to go out for banking. We went through that process, interviewed banks, looked at proposal, and this is the recommendation from the committee.
Thank you very much. John, do you have any questions at all? No. Okay. No, yeah. All right, I have no other questions. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So be it.
So be it.
If you guys